Okay, so here we are. Today is Wednesday and it's noon, and I'm sure all of you are going to take time off of your busy days during lunch hour to watch this incredible interview that I've got with an incredible woman who some of you may actually already know. So I would like to thank Cammy for coming on with me today. She's been kind enough to take some time to share her experiences with the women in this group so that they can also benefit from some of the experiences that she's had just navigating her way through the conventional and functional medicine world as a middle-aged, hormonally imbalanced woman. So I really appreciate you being here, Cammy. Thank you so much. You are snowed in Nebraska.
Yep.
So,
we had a good old blizzard, so it's all good. I'd rather be on here with you than driving around on these roads right now,
absolutely.
So that's good.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, I think one of the places I'd like to start with is just where did your journey start and sort of what's been the progression? You know, what kinds of things did you do? What kind of people did you work with? And how did you make that decision? So just give us a little background about all that.
Okay. Well, it was actually, today I am sitting here talking to you at 53 years old, but it was about a decade ago. So I was probably 43, 44. And a mentor of mine in our business had said, you know, I just said, I can't focus. Like I don't feel like myself. And she said, I think you need to go talk to somebody about hormones. Like maybe your hormones are imbalanced. I'm like, okay. So she referred me to somebody and I went to that appointment and she listened. And what she prescribed for me when I left was an antidepressant. I just walked out of that office and I went, I'm not depressed. Like that's not I really did not feel in my heart of hearts that was the issue of what was going on. So I filled the prescription and I went home and I actually just prayed over that for a couple of days. And I just felt in my heart of hearts, I was not supposed to start taking that medicine. That was not the issue. So I just didn't. She did prescribe a couple of other things. Like I'm trying to think back, that's been so long ago. I think I did under my tongue some progesterone at that point. And I might have done, gosh, I can't even remember. She might have prescribed something vaginally at that point. So anyway, I did it for a little while, was not effective. I never went back and I just lumped along. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, it was obvious something was not right. Like this was not who I was. I was normally high energy, could focus, could run after a goal, could get a lot done, could do a lot. And I literally felt like I was just surviving to get through my day, that I didn't have my normal drive to be out and interacting with people like I normally would. I was doing a whole lot more laying on the couch watching TV than I normally would, and it just wasn't right. So I did seek out hormone replacement through a commercial I saw on TV. So I was at one of the more broad-based centers across the U.S. that's probably well-known in lots of bigger cities.
So let me just interrupt you one question, one quickly there. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do have one.
Fine.
So the very first time you went back for hormone replacement, you went to a facility that was sort of like, it wasn't an individual physician. It was more like a franchise type of thing. I mean,
Correct.
You don't have to mention names, but and so what kind of provider did they have there? Was it
No, that was interesting. So you did some blood work before you went in. Then when you went in,
before they
even saw me, I did some blood work. Okay. And then that day I met with a nurse practitioner. I did not actually meet with a doctor. And she just looked at my blood work and said, here's the problem. We can fix you. You're good on estrogen, but your progesterone and testosterone are, out of whack, really low. And so progesterone would be, they did do you call it a troche, what you put under your tongue? Okay, so I did a troche, and then I was going to do hormone pellets. So then you just met with someone who explained the cost of that and how often you would be coming to see them, which was quarterly with the pellets, basically. And I made a decision to go ahead and do that. I mean, I didn't know where else to turn, but honestly, I did get results. And so I stayed with that program for about 3 years, and then I felt good. And my OBGYN at an annual wellness check expressed concern about bioidentical hormones. So I went, okay, I'm going to stop. I feel good. I'm going to stop. So I really didn't do any research to get information. I didn't really know where to go to get good information on that. And you and I have talked about this. I do have breast cancer history in my family through my mom. So then that was an extra red flag from just information I knew, not from any research. And now I know that's not the case, but I just thought, I'm going to quit. So I did for 3 years. And not quite a year ago, 10 months ago in March, I sought it out again. I got a referral through a friend, sought it out again because my husband's like, Cammy, you've got to do something like this. It did look like I was depressed. I didn't have any drive. By about, at the latest, 11 o'clock in the morning, I'd get up, I would feel good, and think, oh, it's going to be a great day. And I'd get dressed, I'd get in my office to get about what I normally would do. And by 9, 10, or 11 o'clock, the only way I can describe it is it literally felt like somebody had unscrewed the cap on my energy reserve. And I literally felt like it drained out of me while I sat in my chair. And any drive I had to make a phone call, to talk to somebody, to engage in an activity, to do anything left me. And I was just toast for the rest of the day. And so
and at this point, you would have been 52.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so I did start back on bioidentical hormones. I went, did blood work, met with her, and she's like, your estrogen's okay, but your progesterone's in the tank, your testosterone's in the tank, and your thyroid's not functioning.
So let me interrupt you right there. So when you went to see this new person, you said that it was a physician?
It was a nurse practitioner slash chiropractor working in bioidentical hormone.
Okay. And when you went to see this person, it was based on a referral from a friend of yours. You were still having your period at the time?
I was regularly on regular 28-day cycles.
Okay. All right. So she did blood work. Please continue. I just wanted to.
Yep. And so, no, it's fine. And so my mom has Graves' disease. So it totally made sense to me that my thyroid was tanking. I just thought, okay, now this is what I've got going on, you know? And so I started back on progesterone, low dose thyroid med, and testosterone pellets again. And then upped those doses pretty quickly. And then I did feel better after a few months, and I was functioning again. I was far from 100%, but I was way better than what I was. But then we got into the fall, and I just felt like I totally had regressed. And I was worse than I was before I had started. So I just knew something wasn't right. I felt like maybe my dosages were really high. I could tell the thyroid med was not right. It was too high and too strong for me. And so at that point is when I was, through my Mary Kay network, found out who you were, got to this page right here that we're on Facebook, just started looking at some of the things that you were posting. And I thought, this lady knows what she's talking about. So that's when I just set up a consultation, just to have a sounding board of, you know, am I on the right path? Am I on the wrong path? I feel like I'm on the wrong path. And just, is there a way to fix this? And that's where you came into the picture.
Okay. So now I have some other questions because you have a really, you have a great story that I wanted to elaborate on, because I know a lot of people out there are interested in hormones. They are using hormones in different ways. Lots of people are sort of pushed towards pellets because they're convenient. And, you know, obviously they're a little bit more lucrative and they're, you know, they're fine. I've done video posts on pellets before. I think what was unique about your situation, well, it's honestly, unfortunately, it's not unique. I see this happen a lot. It's not unique. But what I wanted to point out to the women in the group was that when you went back to see this person, and you had told me that they were just automatically, first of all, they didn't take into consideration that you were still having a period. And so when you give a woman testosterone, testosterone can turn into estrogen. And so it's consistent estrogen release. And when you got your testosterone pellet, it started out as a low dose, But then, just give more detail. I guess you would go back, you would complain of symptoms. And I guess from what you told me, she wasn't even doing blood work. And then she was raising your dose, or remind me.
She was doing blood work. Okay. She was doing blood work. And to me, honestly, and not to throw her under the bus, because the majority of people that I know that are having consultations done and getting bioidentical hormones, what she was testing for was the same that the majority of other physicians that I've talked to, friends who are having bioidentical hormones, and what I had experienced prior was all the same. So it all, looked like the same litmus test as far as what you would determine whether I needed more of something or less of something or to change something. So I would always do blood work before I went in, and then we would compare my my blood test from the previous quarter, and then I had done interim blood work between my first and my second appointment to see how things were working, and then had done blood work before my quarterly visit for testosterone pellets again. So mostly, I would say the reason for the increase, I think we went from, we ended up doubling it, my dosage over a period of 9 months. But what looked like on my blood work was I still was really low, and it was also my symptoms. Like, I still did not feel good. So the autopilot answer was, well, you're really low, so we're going to up your progesterone, and we're going to up your thyroid med, and we're going to up your testosterone, trying to get me to feel better and trying to get those blood counts to come up.
Right. So here's an important point, okay? You pointed out that you had your blood work done before you had your pellet placed. So it would have been, with women, pellets about 3 to 4 months, approximately 3 months or so. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're doing blood work at the time where the pellet's worn off, the levels are going to be low.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's not the right time to do the blood work. The other thing is that estradiol levels and progesterone levels in the bloodstream are never reliable. That's what doctors do all the time. But as you're learning working with me, that's not reliable.
Right.
And so, when you start getting too much testosterone, because it can convert into estrogen, and it also messes up the way your thyroid hormone works. And so you just kept getting more and more thyroid medication. You had to get more progesterone to compensate from what I suspect was conversion of testosterone into estrogen. And what happened to your periods?
Well, my periods quit. I did get a light one. And previous years ago, when I'd been on the bioidentical hormones, my periods had quit totally as well. When I quit those, they came back to normal 28-day cycles. So that was not uncommon. And I thought, okay, that's really, really normal. So I didn't think anything of that. And then we ended up switching my thyroid med because the one I'd been on, even though it was a high dose, appeared to not be working. And so just, there were lots of moving parts in this formula.
Right. And so I guess the other thing that I wanted to point out is that it's not normal. When you're doing bioidentical hormone replacement, the goal is not to try to undo what you're naturally going to be doing anyway. So for instance, there are women in menopause that are going to people that are giving them hormones, and they're cycling them to get them to start having a period again, which physiologically makes no sense. When you're doing, whether it's hormone pellets or any kind of hormones, usually the pellets cause the issue because they use such high doses of testosterone, but it's not normal for you to stop having a period. That in and of itself then creates a bunch of other hormone imbalances.
And that was a red flag for me, because I thought, okay, I'm starting to, I'm working with you in a consultation, or I go to my women's health provider at my general practitioner's office, and it's like, they're saying I'm menopausal, and I'm like, I'm not, it just feels wrong, because before I started this, I was not. So it felt like I'd forced something on my body that wasn't supposed to be happening.
Exactly. And this is another really important point. If you're already on hormones, there's certain tests that doctors will order. They're called an FSH and an LH, and they're sort of the markers that doctors will use to see if you're in menopause. Well, I always kind of laugh because I've seen people on hormones or birth control pills, and once you're on a hormone, those numbers become unreliable because you're giving someone hormone. So, you're officially not menopausal until you haven't had a period on your own for a full year.
Right.
So basically, initially people will feel better regardless of the type of hormone they do. But at some point, once your body, because all your hormones are connected, your body starts to go like, wow, this is not what's supposed to be happening, or it's too much. Yep. Now you ended up on 4 times too much progesterone. The other thing was that you weren't cycling your progesterone. You were getting the same dose all the time.
Correct. Every night.
Right. And in a woman who's still having her periods, that's not the correct way to do that.
Yep.
So what was happening then? You ended up on 4 times more progesterone, 3 times, I think you started at 50 and you ended up at 150 on the testosterone.
100, I think. So I was on 2 times. Yeah, 2 times.
Okay, so it had doubled. And then your thyroid medication, they had doubled the dose of that, I believe, right?
Oh, it started at 16.25 and I was up to 130.
Mm-hmm. So here's the problem, and this is another really important point. All of your hormones are interconnected. So when you start messing with sex hormones, it's going to affect your thyroid hormone.
Yep.
And the solution isn't to give more thyroid medication. The solution is to correct the overdosing, because if you start giving someone a lot of thyroid medication, their own thyroid will quit making it. And then you're going to be stuck on medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
exactly.
So then when we did our consultation, just sort of let people know in general, sort of what were you feeling at that point?
I was desperate at that point. Let's just put it as a one word. I was desperate. And so desperate in the fact that I knew what was going on was not right, in the fact that it wasn't working. So I'm like, here I am on what I feel like are high doses of this and that and another, and yet I feel as bad as I did when I started. So, and I thought I was actually maybe predisposing myself. I was shaky. I know now that was from too high of a thyroid med, but I also thought I was maybe becoming type 2 diabetic like my dad had been. So there were just lots of things going on, in your body when you don't feel right. And you've got to trust your gut instinct that something's not right here. But the other side of that is when you have felt bad for a long time, you don't remember what it's like to feel good, and you start surviving, just like this Facebook group is labeled. You start surviving through that. It's not normal, but you start figuring out a way to get through that. So I was back to no energy by mid-morning, really not wanting to even leave the house, forcing myself to go and be interacting with people, some joint pains, some definite fatigue. I wasn't able to really exercise or even go on a high-paced walk without real fatigue afterwards. What should happen when you are on bioidentical hormones is your libido should get back to where it's normal, and mine was worse than better. And
so that was on high-dose testosterone
on
too, right?
high-dose testosterone. And so there were just lots of things. My husband laughed last night when I said, I'm doing an interview with Dr. Edwards about my journey and my symptoms. And he goes, oh, I could get on there and talk about your symptoms.
Actually, that's a great idea. I am planning on interviewing a husband at some point.
Oh, shoot.
Better.
So anyway, he just knew what was going on with me was not normal. I love what I do. I love my business. I love the impact. I love the people. But when my drive had become very waning in that area as well, you just forget that that's not normal. And you just want to get back to having a zest for life in all areas. And not having to talk yourself into going to something or doing something because you should be there. You should really have the energy to get up and go do that because you want to be there.
Absolutely. So, so that's really, I think, a great sort of overview. And one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on, and again, it's not to criticize anybody in particular.
Right.
It's really, for me, educating patients is probably the most important thing, because when they're empowered with knowledge that's evidence-based, that's scientifically based, and also based on 30 years of experience, but also there's just a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things, and you pull out a physiology book and you look this stuff up, it's all right there. So we're not just fabricating things. So I've seen a lot of people harmed by inappropriately dosed hormone replacement, regardless of the type that it is. And, luckily you weren't, years into it before you finally made a change, thank goodness. So now, obviously, we've been working together. I think this is week 7 now, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so what I wanted you to kind of give everybody an idea, I think you've gotten us really clear on why you went into a different direction. Mm-hmm. So tell me how, I don't want to get into a lot of detail because obviously what we're working on is different than what I'm working on with other people, but just in general, sort of what has your experience been and how are you feeling after, I guess, 2 months? Not even? Yeah.
Yeah, not even 2 months. I felt better within 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So I feel like a new person. Like I literally feel like I am on the journey to getting back to thriving in my life and not just surviving. We have reduced meds and we've done a lot of different things. So what I loved about your approach, Dr. Edwards, was the whole body approach. Like I felt like before, here's the other reason I knew something was wrong. When I'd get overall blood work done for wellness checks from my husband's, annual exams they have us do for health insurance, et cetera, I'm a healthy woman. So I thought, what's wrong here? Because overall, I'm healthy. Like, other than this, I was on no prescription medicines. I had no highs or lows on any other counts on a 6-page blood work. I mean, I was really a healthy person other than that. So I knew I just had to get this piece back under control. And even though I was working on it, it wasn't effective. So learning to ask more questions. I felt like what I had done these last 3 times had ended up just to be a Band-Aid instead of really getting down to the core of what's going on. And you and I were just talking about that this last week. It's like, okay, there was obviously something else. So a person needs to look at your whole body, like your sleep and how you eat and just your stress. And you've got to look at the whole picture. You can't just take this one little piece of the puzzle out and go, oh, this is off kilter. Okay, Band-Aid, we're going to give you a prescription for this and a prescription for this. You have to look at the entire physiology of what's going on in your body and get to the foundational core of why things got off kilter. Like, why did the brick start falling out of the wall in the first place? Not just put some more mortar and try to shove that brick back in the wall. And so I really feel like that number one was the thing. I just knew by our initial conversation that you had the knowledge from your years of experience that you could guide me through and get me well. And at that point, I said, I will do whatever you tell me to do. Right. So that's the other piece. Like, you have to be at a place where it's not going to be convenient and you're going to have to make some lifestyle changes and you're going to have to do some things that are different. And I have an incredibly supportive husband and I have an incredible supportive network of girlfriends. But you have to, say, I am ready to do whatever is going to get me well and change whatever needs to be changed for my better health and have that, support network around you for whatever changes you're going to make that will support you in that transformation back to better health.
Thank you so much for that. You're going to make me cry.
But it makes me cry when I talk to people about what's happened in my life in the last 7 weeks.
Well, I'm so thrilled. And I think your point is so well taken. I think, again, this isn't to throw shade at any other providers, but I really, your body is connected and your hormones are one piece of that. And so, if you go and see a provider and all they're looking at is just your hormones and how much cream do you need or how much of a pellet do you need, that really misses the boat as well because, your hormones are going to be processed directly according to, whether or not your liver is metabolizing things correctly, what's your gut health like, what's your stress like, how are you sleeping, and all those things that we look at and what we were mentioning. And, you can put the same hormone on your body when things are better and things are not great at all. And it's going to, even if it's the same dose, the same exact thing, it's going to work completely different. So, so you really do have to work with somebody who's looking at all of those things. Right. And the other thing I think that's really important is you can't just look at numbers. Okay. So if you're working with somebody who understands what they're doing, Cammy was better in 3 weeks and we hadn't even done any tests on her yet.
Right. You hadn't even done my blood work. And that's the thing I loved. You're like, symptoms rule. Like no matter what your blood work says, if you have a symptom, something's not right. And so we can't just look at a lab result and go, well, your blood work's fine. So, and even if my blood work, if we're increasing dosages of things and we're not seeing a result in my blood work, it's the same that way too. Like something's not right here. Something's wrong. So symptoms truly rule, and to not second guess yourself. You are your own best healthcare advocate.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows how your body feels other than you. There's times where somebody could ask you, how do you feel? And you might have a hard time even putting it into words, but you know when you don't feel right. And so your symptoms really are your gauge on the spectrum of whether things are working right or whether they're not. And you can't just go by your blood work.
Absolutely. And I have never, ever, and I've done the research, I've looked at all the science, I've never seen any woman have a symptom because she had a Prozac deficiency or an Ambien deficiency or a Zocor or whatever. So that's another thing that's really important, I think, your symptoms, but also, when you have people manipulating your hormones, these hormones control everything. So, that's why a lot of women, once they go into menopause, that's when most women develop all of their health issues, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's disease, et cetera. So I think that another thing I wanted to point out, because, you mentioned you had a family history of breast cancer, you have a family history of diabetes, and you aren't your genes. I mean, you can manipulate your genes on a daily basis just by what you're putting in and on your body. So if you're working with someone who isn't proficient with the hormone piece of it in particular, they can actually cause other health issues, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, et cetera, if things aren't being done correctly and things aren't being properly balanced. And it's not just about even ordering the right test. You have to know when to order it. Okay, just like you were getting your blood tests done when your hormone pellet was already gone. So it's going to be low, right? So there's a certain time frame that you have to collect things. There's certain tests that are more accurate than others. And so, obviously that's all individual. But I just wanted to point out how how things can get overlooked and things can go in the wrong direction if people aren't doing it the right way. So,
absolutely.
So I was actually, as my last question to you, I was going to ask you, what's your piece of advice? But I think you already gave it.
And education, trust your gut. Like when you know something's not right and you've gone to a provider and they just are like, well, basically telling you, we either just need more of this or you just need to live with it, really to not lay down, roll over and lay down and just take that, Education is huge. That's the thing I think I value most about having the opportunity to work with you is the intense amount of education that you're providing. And really, I tell my girlfriends, I feel like I'm back in college. I'm really learning so much. It's incredible. And so it's knowledge is power when you can understand better how everything is linked together and to not just stop there. Like keep seeking out the answer. Don't just roll over and say, well, my doctor's always been so great. I have an incredible family physician, and I would trust him with probably everything except for this piece because this isn't his expertise. So I just believe that for me, I just had to pray about it and keep my ears and eyes open and keep asking questions. And I believe that you will find the right source. I do believe I've, found a great residual provider here that mimics and is on the same plane of what you believe in, Dr. Edwards. And so if you get out there and look here, somewhere else, you've got to ask the right questions, and you've got to have somebody that'll listen to you and get to the root of, I think I can maintain it now, but I honestly will say I would have never gotten to this place without you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's good to know that all of those years of hard work and all of those student loans I'm still paying off are worth it.
They're worth it to me. Thank you.
Well, I think that's why God put me on the earth, to do what I'm doing. But I will do a live broadcast shortly after this to talk to you guys a little bit about, what you're going to want to look for in a provider, because, the world of integrative medicine, functional medicine right now is like the wild, wild west. And it's really, really hard to find a good functional medicine person. So just because somebody says they're a functional medicine person doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're doing. And that's why when I work with my patients, I have created incredibly intense, I tell all of them by the time they're done working with me, they're going to know more than any physician probably that they see, including endocrinologists. I've actually had Harvard trained endocrinologists in my lectures before going, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, I read. So that's going to be the key piece, is not just, using my brain to fix you. Okay, who you're done. And yes, I uncovered everything and I found everything, but giving you so much information and knowledge that when you decide to move on and work with another provider, which as long as they don't mess with your stuff, you'll be fine, really. Because I've had my other patients, because I was out of practice for a year or so, year and a half, and they had to find other practitioners. And these practitioners just started testing the wrong fluid and just magically rearranging things, and they all feel terrible again when they were doing fine. So that's why that educational piece to me is so important. And that's one of the main reasons I started this group, and one of the main reasons I started to go back into practicing again. Obviously I do it a little differently now, but I'm glad that you're benefiting from it, and I'm hopeful that you will continue to benefit from it. And I'm really, really grateful to you for taking time out of your day to educate the women of the group. I know that they all appreciate it very much. And
the next Facebook Live will be very helpful, because I think I knew the right questions to ask to find a local provider that would support what you've already done and help the place that you've already helped me get to and where I will be here. But without knowing what to ask and what you're looking for, it is the wild, wild west out there, especially when it comes to bioidentical hormones, for sure. And now I know they are safe. And they will help me be healthier throughout my life, because they're going to be in the right doses now. So that's the real critical inch.
Right. And you might want to just finally tell everybody that right now, other than a much lower dose of thyroid medicine, you're not on anything.
I'm not on anything at the moment. It's like crazy. So anyway, that's why I'm saying there's more to the picture than just going in and getting bioidentical hormones. And if you're not looking at the whole picture, I am now understanding the other pieces of the puzzle that caused part of that foundation to crumble. But if you aren't looking at the whole picture, just putting a hormone Band-Aid on is not the long-term answer.
Absolutely. Cammy, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate it so much that I might hop in a plane and come help you shovel snow. I could get away from my teenagers for a while too, which would be awesome.
It's beautiful out there. I can flip my camera around maybe. Yeah, there's snow.
Wow, that's pretty.
Hold on. Yeah, there's snow everywhere. We got lots of snow. We got feet of snow. So yeah, it's beautiful out.
Oh. Well, thank you again. I really do appreciate everything.
Thanks, Dr. Edwards.
All right, hon. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here, and I will hop back on here in a little bit and do some more venting. Thanks so much.
Thanks.